The Mills Reese was an ancient place that had received no love as newer spots opened, looking like a dust-coated labyrinth of a hotel. Walking through its now empty double doors, he beheld its former magnificence. It was a pink and green themed place, with various flamingo-style decorations, palm trees, and beach accessories. Dust and time had not been kind to it, however, running it down immensely to a point where Grimm noted that it would work as a haunted house now, no spooky decorations needed. And that was not even getting into what was inside of a hotel now also. Strolling through the main lobby, a large and empty room even by Grimm's standards of large and empty, he beheld the main spine of the building. It was a massive square hole that showed almost every floor in the place and the glass ceiling. Noting that one day the glass ceiling would most likely be broken, Grimm set to doing what he had come here for. Grimm gently set down the beat-up book he had made to catalog what he did during this time that Amelia was gone. Opening it, he then went to the elevator and pressed the up arrow. Part of him wondered why the elevator still worked, and he wrote that down, filling in the first words on day 100. The gym bag was still wrapped around his back as he walked back to the elevator as it opened. Stepping in, Grimm sensed the door close on him, and as the elevator moved upwards, he felt the rest of his flashback play as a sort of in-flight entertainment. A lot had changed since then, Amelia's way of speech being the most obvious one. But one thing had not changed. Grimm felt some shame for going to Amelia's, for reasons he did not want to confront right now. Thankfully, the elevator door opened, allowing him to go forth onto the floor and meet what he'd wanted to meet. The floor was decorated much the same way as the first floor, and was an empty area with rooms dispersed around it in a square. In the middle of the floor, though, there was an occupant. The only problem was, they weren't human. Grimm knew them as predators, and the name was rather fitting, if only because all of them looked like various predatory animals, and most had lived and been around for longer than any non-magical life form could ever manage. The one in the middle of the room, a final predator he had missed last time he came here, was a golden cobra man. If the fangs, scales, and neck flaps belonged to something else, Grimm wouldn't be exactly pleased, mainly because it would have lied to him that it was a cobra. Possible Cobra was dressed in a light brown sweater and khaki pants with a set of dark brown loafers and reading glasses on its head. If it weren't for its golden scaly head, it would have been the most singular, boringly interesting thing in the room. So, Nope Rope. Can we please talk this out? As he said so, Grimm pulled out the longest object in his gym bag, holding it in his hand. It was a painted orange medieval battle axe, no special engravings or colors to it, just a steel stick with a massive curved iron blade on one side and a smaller one on the other. He wondered if, for once, his question would be answered with a yes. Nope Rope, as it was now called, had already turned an eyeball on Grimm, with its orange-slit eyes narrowing and mouth giving off a hiss of aggression. After the axe was fully displayed, that's when it attacked by rushing him at full blast. As some who rush can tell you, this is just an invitation for someone to kite you like a bull. And that is exactly what happened, as Grimm dodged the charging cobra to go and swing for its heart. Unfortunately, the cobra was a decent acrobatic, and it managed to prevent the axe from hitting it, thanks to the age-old tactic of jumping away from the blade. Turning around to face it, Grimm snarled as the first part of his 2-hit kill failed, and his question was answered no, again. He'd wanted to end this quickly, but apparently it wanted to drag this out. The rage vanished quickly, and silence replaced it. The predator proceeded to shapeshift itself as he fumed, red smoke enveloping it as the reptile man became a replica of Amelia, down to its clothes becoming the purple and orange dress she had worn earlier this week when she'd gone to a reception with Grog and Twyla. In his mind, Grimm noted it was times like these he hated these predators. Really? Couldn't even hide his herd a day? The predator simply smiled in ignorance, the illusion breaking as its fangs showed through its mouth, then brandished a knife that was not of ramshackle make, which looked like a shard of metal from a car crash, but an actual machined blade. It was decently long enough to block the axe attack, both bracing against each other fairly evenly. As Grim noted, this was the first one he dealt with where their weapons had seemed machine-made. The grinding of blades was short, however, as Grim kicked upwards into the groin of the Predator and brought his axe close to his head. Even as the Predator let out an inhuman cry of pain and groaning thanks to the attack, it rapidly recovered and decided to swap forms again, the red smoke enveloping and dematerializing to show its next form. The knife was dropped during the fight, and Grim made sure to keep an eye on it. This form was a cribbing of Abraham Karayuki, a man who Grim had some history with and was another member of Amelia's pack of friends. Abraham was a head taller than Grim and maybe about a whole half-foot wider than him shoulder-wise. He was built like a wall, unlike the rather plain Grim and the muscular but lean Amelia. In his mind, Grim grumbled that the Predator just had to make it harder rather than easier. Now boosted by its newfound form, the Predator shoved Grim away, causing Grim to land on the floor on his back, the axe missing the Predator's head and embedding itself in the floor thanks to momentum. Retrieving its knife, the Predator charged and opened its jaws, the illusion breaking as its nearly 180-degree opening maw tried to turn Grim's face into its meal for the night. Grim had other ideas, however, and with a yank of his arm, wrenched the axe free and jammed it towards the heart of the Predator. Again. Its shoulder went crack, and Grim felt it pierced into his true gold-scale flesh, red blood firing out of it like he broke a soda can. Taking this distraction, he hit it in the head with his fist, yanked it downwards toward his side, then pulled the axe out and prepared to bury it in its head. Again. The weakened Predator, however, had one more surprise for Grim. The smoke appeared, and this time it got into Grim's head. Rope turned into the spitting image of his father. For the first time in nearly 4 years, Grim saw his father in front of him in real life. He knew, though, that it was not real, and that the injury from before was healing fast behind its illusion. The thing would be back up at full power soon, but that did not stop him from standing away and taking it all in. His father's black hair, dark brown eyes, pale skin tone, and rugged beard were replicated perfectly, along with his typical work clothing of a dark green suit and pants. Grim's mind swirled as he took in all of this, mainly with one fact. These Predators could only hide as people they had met in real life recently, which meant that this Predator had met his father, and, most likely, his mother. This stung him hard in several areas. The Predator smiled a little, breaking the illusion as its grin went beyond normal and into the insane, and once again charged Grim. However, Grim succeeded in his attack. Finally, with a lunging forward of his axe, defying that maneuver from the Predator's arsenal, he speared it straight through its jaws, causing a small explosion of blood from where the back of its head was. After a few seconds, Grim felt it go limp as it died and pulled it off the blade. What happened next was him kneeling and staring at what he had just killed, for a good long bit. This thing had hidden as his father and had nearly killed him twice if not for desperate maneuvers he had pulled off. His brainwaves effectively died off as he went through all of this, and admittedly, there was some crying involved as he remembered his dad thanks to this. He hadn't seen the man in years, feared he never would, and now he'd had to kill an imposter of him. There was also some grief for his mother, but it was not nearly as strong due to not having to kill an imposter. After this onset of sadness, there was a different emotion that replaced it. Determination and resignation were what Grim felt as he pulled out his phone and dialed Amelia.
Sup, Grim? Practice is going pretty well. How's your night?
Her chipper tone and lack of accent made Grim sting a little as he knew what he'd have to tell her next. He was pretty sure she wasn't going to stay happy like this for long.
Amelia, I know about the Predators. And you. Get the whole group together as quick as you can. We need to talk.
He felt himself stutter through some of this, and noted his voice on a whole sounded much more hoarse than usual. Amelia was rather quiet as she responded, happy tones gone thanks to his voice and the mention of Predators.
On it.
As she hung up, Grim looked at the Predator, felt a great sickness and sadness rise in him as he realized what he had to do, and then swallowed it down.
Amelia, I know about the Predators and you. Get the whole group together as quick as you can. We all need to talk.
If the fangs, scales, and neck flaps belong to something else, Grim wouldn't exactly be exact. Really? Couldn't even hide as her today? Really? Couldn't even hide as what she looks like today?